Hey, what's up, everybody? I am Mark.
And I'm Sid.
And we are the
Raphaels.
And we are so glad to have you guys back for another episode.
Yeah.
It's going to be amazing.
It is. And as always, don't forget to subscribe, click that little bell wherever it is, and turn on your alerts.
Yeah, turn them on.
Yeah. So today, thank you so much for joining us. Now that you know kind of our background and our story, we're going to get into some marriage topics and discussions.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, and it's going to be really fun, and we hope that you will join us in the comments and whatever you can, and give us some feedback and kind of how you feel about all the situations.
Join in, be active. This is a community, and we got to lean on each other, and we're going to take some things that you guys have been through and talk about it, and we're going to talk about things from our own experience and talk about how we made it through and what we do now, what we did then.
Yes.
And that's how we're going to move going forward.
Absolutely. So let's get into it. We are talking about communication today.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
And we sucked at it for a very long time.
It wasn't even, okay, so let's kind of lay a little bit of background. Mark and I are very different human beings.
Yeah.
Very different.
Very.
And we grew up in very different households with very different communication styles.
Yeah, for sure. And it was very evident that we were not on the same page with how to get across to each other, or like what was not acceptable, right? But just what was healthy, what would get through and would stick
for each other,
as opposed to just like, I don't like how you said that, so I'm going to ignore everything that you said.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll talk a little bit about the kind of household that I was raised in. There was an issue that we ran into at the very beginning of our marriage where Mark would say to me, what would you tell me?
I mean, I said a lot of stuff.
Oh no, but what was your like main issue?
With how you communicated?
Yeah.
She was mean to me. The way that she communicated was just like...
Was like aggressive?
I mean, it was aggressive, but it was very matter-of-factly, right? Like, more or less like she was talking to a child as opposed to like a partner. And I was like, I don't like that at all. But that was, I mean, it wasn't even, I don't want to say direct, right? Because I can take direct, I think. Maybe I'm not so good at it as I think I am.
Right.
But just her delivery just came across so tough.
Right, that's what you was. So he's saying that, but I think I'm talking to this man so softly and so gently.
That's how you felt?
I did, because of the way that my household, what I grew up in, comparatively, I was talking to you.
Oh, you were
gently.
the soft communicator.
Exactly.
Wow.
But because the communication was like, there's a lot of sarcasm, a lot of like tough talk, if that's what we're gonna call it, a lot of tough talk, a lot of aggression, and just emotional, passionate talking. So that's what I was used to, because that is how I was raised. So I couldn't even relate to what he was saying, because to me, I was like, I am talking to you so softly and you're having an issue with it.
Yeah, which was crazy to me, because I'm like, I'm literally telling you that the way that you're talking to me makes me want to shut down and not converse with you, because it sounds like we're arguing. Like, to me, when she was talking to me, at the end of the conversation, we were going to fight. Regardless of how the conversation started, it was going to end as an argument. And so for me, it was like, oh, I'm not talking to you because it's going to go here. And I pride myself, not so much now, but I used to pride myself in being non-confrontational, which was honestly, if I'm being super honest about it was just a way for me to avoid accountability.
Talk about it.
Chill. Because I listen. I turn around and just not talking. No, I'm joking.
Right.
We're healed. We're healing. But no, at the time, I would definitely take advantage of, hey, you're being confrontational. You know I'm non-confrontational. So you just want to fight. And then she'd be like, what?
I'm not.
What are you talking about?
Exactly. I'm not being confrontational at all. Like, now, I'm just talking.
Now, sometimes, though, she was being confrontational.
Yes.
And she'd still say, I'm just talking.
Well.
So, you know.
Well, I don't mind confrontation.
No, she thrives. She thrives.
That's not true. Don't say I thrive. I just don't think it's a big deal. I think it's a part of everyday life.
It's her happy place.
No, it's not. When you're in relationship with somebody, like, confrontation is going to come up. So I'm fully accepting and aware of that. So I'm not the one that's going to like push it away.
Yeah.
It's on the same level as the rest of communication for me.
For sure. And for me, it was not.
Right.
It was not at all. So for me, it was just like, if the conversation was going to be heavy or taxing for me, I'm removing myself from that situation. And I'm going to say, can we table this? And she's going to say, oh, okay. Well, when are we going to talk about it again? And I'm going to say, tomorrow. And I'm not going to bring it back up ever again. And that's my toxic trait. Or at least it was. And that...
Love that we're being honest.
Tore her up. She would be so mad, and I would just be so happy because I'm like, oh, we don't got to talk about this. Cool. That's problematic.
And it just created a cycle.
Oh my God, right? Yeah.
It just created a cycle, yeah.
That was our thing.
Yeah. Okay, so tell them a little bit about how you grew up. Like, what did you see? And I ask because, like, that was something that I was taught, I feel like, a lot about marriage, and I feel like I wasn't taught anything about communication in marriage.
Yeah, so growing up, I saw a working father and my mom stayed at home. And they seemed to work well in that way as partners. But when I really look back to it, I'm just not sure how much of that I witnessed until I got older. So the older I got, I remember my parents going to counseling, not for like major issues, but like for maintenance. And then they started doing things differently in the home. So if they had an issue or an argument in the home, in public, in front of the children, they would also apologize in front of the children. Like, they wouldn't argue in the kitchen and then my dad would say, hey, I'm sorry, in the bedroom, right? He'd come out and be like, hey, I want to let you, in front of everybody, I'm sorry, for what I've done. And so the older I started seeing those, but that was like later.
So that's really awesome, because I don't think I've ever heard of any other parents doing that. And that's really, I think, healthy. And it takes accountability for you guys saying that. What were their arguments like in communication, without getting too much into, but like the vibe of the arguments?
Heavy.
Really?
Yeah, so like from how I remember them, they were just heavy. They weren't in front of us, right? Like, that's something that they were very intentional about doing. Like, oh, we're not gonna do that in front of the kids. I'm sure that's something that they had a conversation about because it was so rare. But you could feel the energy shift, when it happened or after it happened, and then the recovery period. That's how I remember it.
Yeah, see, and I never had that heavy cloud.
Yeah, really?
Yeah. And I don't even know how seriously I took my parents arguing, because they do. I mean, you've seen them. This is just what it is. This is super normal behavior in communication.
Yeah, and I think that for me, because like to see Sid's family like argue, literally, it sounds like either someone's gonna get hit or it's literally just like a roast session, but all at the same time. So it's like you don't know what's gonna happen 2 seconds after whatever said is said, but we're riding with it. And so like
keep you on your toes.
Yeah. So it's light, right?
Yeah.
It's light, even if it's not.
Right.
As opposed to my experience with it, and that's probably why I kind of moved the way I moved in regards to confrontations, because it didn't feel light, right? So it felt like, oh, things can crash and burn at any time if this is what it looks like. Well, so it'll go like, hey, I said this because it makes me feel bad. Her response is, well, why exactly does it make you feel bad? And if I don't know, well, not anymore, but in the past, if I didn't know what, or if I could not articulate exactly why it made me feel that way in the first 2 seconds, curtains.
Not in the first 2 seconds.
5?
I feel like I gave you some time. Like, it was in the first 2 seconds, and then you still couldn't come up with any sort of answer. I was also really, I don't want to say annoyed, but kind of. I was
Definitely
kind of annoyed at how little like self-awareness and like stock that you took, or how little intention you put behind what you felt and what you thought and what you did. And that, because I'm the absolute opposite, like everything, I'm very intentional about everything. So for me, it was just like, you're just you're just walking in life, like not paying attention to anything going on inside of you mentally or emotionally. And I didn't feel that I could work with that.
Yeah. She couldn't work with it, and it was evident. And I was like, well, dang, if you can't work with that, and I'm not really trying to change how I move or how I walk and how free, and a lack of, I don't want to say, to me, it didn't feel bad at the time, right? Like, I'm just like, this is just kind of how I am. This is how I move. Like, it's not that deep to me.
But you didn't know yourself that well.
Yeah, no, for sure. There was a lot of gray area at that time. And I wasn't so intentional or had a desire to change that.
Yeah.
And
I didn't get that. I really struggled with that.
Which she should have. Like, in retrospect, like, that's crazy. Like, I'm a grown man. Like, why is that something that I didn't have a desire for?
Yeah,
right.
I really struggled with that. And that actually, a lot of me being like pushy in conversation and kind of pushy like toward confrontation and us dealing with stuff, was me being annoyed with where you were.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. And yeah, it makes sense, but also there was no room for you. And I'll say that, like, in a lot of areas, there was no room for you because I didn't leave it. And regardless of where I felt you should have been, it's not where you were. And in any relationship, you have to have room for both people where they are.
Yeah.
And of course, there's room to grow and change. But if the person doesn't have room where they are, that's not going to happen. Like, the growth and the change is not going to happen.
Yeah, and I think she took on a role of, okay, if he's not there and he can't have these type of conversations, then it's my job now
to make sure
that he gets there.
Yeah.
And she took on a role that she just had no place taken on. And not, when I say no place, like, oh, she was out of order, that wasn't a thing. It's just that there was not a role, but there was a space for her to be in as a wife and as a spouse and as a partner. And her growing me in that capacity, in that area, was not it. That's something that she took on that just became heavy. It was
for both of us.
It was, and that's when I started feeling like, oh, why is she talking to me like I'm her child?
Yeah.
Right? Like, who are you talking to? Like, that's crazy, right? And for her, it was just like, okay, what else do I do? Mm-hmm. Like, why? Like, I know that there are things that should be worked on and should be, over time, and things that should just be better. But it just felt like an attack. At all, everything just felt like an attack.
Yeah. We needed help.
We needed so much help.
We needed help.
We needed so many tools.
Yeah.
We needed a lot. We gave each other nothing.
Well, we didn't think that at the time, though.
No.
We thought we were giving everything.
Listen.
You're draining me.
Listen, I can't give you any more of me. There's no more of me.
I have nothing left to
give. Nah, for real.
We were giving nothing.
And felt like we gave it all.
Right.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh. Like,
oh.
What a time.
What a time.
I really struggled with what she said as opposed to what I felt she was trying to say.
This is he's okay. He still struggles with it. Are you working on
it? Yeah.
So
it's a process.
I will say something that I think is very clear, very straightforward. Mark hears something different. And I don't know. And the thing is that when he calls it back, when he recalls it to me, and I'll say, what did I just say? He will say something different than what I just said.
It'll be pretty off.
Pretty consistent.
Yeah, pretty off.
And I'll be like, I did not say that. What is that about? Can you tell us what that's about?
I'm not positive like what it is at the core yet, so that's, shout out to therapy.
Yeah.
But I think I have a thing about thinking for people. And that goes to like when I was lying in the past and things like that as well. Like I'm thinking, well, if I was them, this would make me feel that way.
Considering how different we are, and you projecting your thoughts and feelings onto me almost never works.
Yeah. It's like 0 for 50.
Yeah, it almost never works. Sometimes you're on it, but most of the time it's like
very off.
Yeah,
very off. Yeah. So over time, we've grown, and we're still growing.
Yes.
But it's been a lot of prayer, a lot of tough conversations. I think one of the best things for us has just been transparency. Like, hey, I don't like this.
Yeah.
This doesn't make me feel good. This hurt my feelings. I struggle with this. This is a trigger.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of things that like we don't do anymore. Mm-hmm. And then being super intentional about checking on that person that has the trigger, right? Communicating like, hey, how are you? What do you need? How can I help? Mm-hmm. Just being really present, being super intentional, and being genuine. Yeah. Right? So those have been some keys that we've uncovered and that we're actively using, and we're still working on it, but it's a part of our communication journey.
Yeah. I think that one other thing that we're getting really good at is like catching ourselves really quickly. We've started getting pretty good at that. So if I know I have an attitude, or if I'm really anxious and heightened and I say something out of that emotion, usually I will apologize really quickly. And Mark does the same thing. If he says something off the wall or something just with the wrong tone that could come off disrespectful or anything like that, immediately he's saying sorry.
Yeah, not playing those games anymore. Whereas before, it was almost like a competition.
Yeah.
Like who can be maddest longest. Right? Who can really hold on to this?
Yeah.
And like, oh, you're mad? Bet. Oh, you're leaving? Oh, cool. Oh, you think I'm gonna say I love you when we're arguing?
Yeah.
Oh, bet. You think I'm gonna like respond and say, oh, I made it safely? Oh, no. You need to sit in this knowing that we're not communicating because of the way that you talk to me.
Toxic.
And that sounds crazy.
Toxic.
That sounds crazy, but we were good at that. And so we needed to work just as hard and be just as good at doing the opposite.
Fixing it. And then the other part of that or other side of that is, because like you said, we were kind of at war before, but now when one person like pops off or does whatever and says sorry immediately, it's up to the other person at that point to be like, okay, it's okay. Like, I forgive you. Let's move on. Because it can easily still go that way if the other person's like, no.
No, I don't want your sorry.
You don't talk to, right.
Yeah, no, your sorry isn't accepted.
Right.
Yeah, so
it's both sides in every situation that happens. It's both sides that have to do work.
And it's not easy.
Yeah.
We've been super intentional about nipping it in the bud early.
Yeah.
And being on each other's team, like being teammates, has been so beautiful.
Yes.
It's so beautiful. Like just knowing that like we're doing this for each other, and as opposed to I'm not just taking care of me and worrying about my sanity or my safety. Game changer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Healthy communication doesn't have to be difficult. For me, I think one of the like game changers was just like, if you truly love this person, speak to them in love, with love. And that, if I think about it that way, and now it's more natural, right? But initially I had to really be very intentional. Like, okay, your response needs to be from a loving space. And if it's not from a loving space, then you can't respond that way. And that has changed a lot in how we communicate from my perspective.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of growth and spiritual growth and maturity that had to take place for me. And now deep conversations are just deep conversations. We have them. Accountability is just a part of the day. Like there's no games with that anymore. Responsibility, accountability, the role of a husband, of a father, all of that was something that I learned over time in our marriage.
Yeah.
Should have had that prior to getting married. But we're here.
Yeah.
We're here. So yeah, that's communication with the Raphaels. Work in progress, but definitely a beautiful work at this point.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So yeah, in the comments, if you want to tell us maybe some of your communication pet peeves with your spouse or your partner, or the way that you like to be communicated with.
Yeah, put those in there. If you guys have any questions about anything you guys heard us say, and you guys maybe want some more detail, definitely put those in the comments. We will respond. We are here to speak our truth and speak about our experience, but also we want to help as much as we can.
Yes.
And we feel like our transparency is a great start. So thank you guys again for joining us. We love you guys so much. Again, please subscribe. Please set your alerts so that you guys know when we're dropping new content. We are going to be dropping some music for you guys soon.
Yeah.
And some more family content, like with our kids and whatnot. So yeah, we're going to be adding things in slowly but surely. But once again, I am Mark.
And I'm Sid.
And we're the Raphaels. And we will see you guys next week. All right, guys.
Bye.
Bye.